So it seems that every single year there's this invisible quota that every Tower Heroes YouTuber seems to meet. The quota goes something like this: make a video of you crashing out on Tower Heroes player count. It's usually some video about how the game is dying, how the game is boring, or some rendition of the two that I just mentioned. 2025 is almost upon us, and I'm the only one, well, that at least that I'm aware of, that hasn't met that quota. So let me give you an idea of what will be discussed. We'll be talking about their update load, the issues that everyone talks about relating to the game, and finally, what I think to be the real reason why the game is in its current state. To start off, I want to take you back to the era of April 15th, 2020. You're scrolling through the games page, looking for a new game, then suddenly you come across something that piques your interest. That game, at least for me, happened to be Tower Heroes, a simple tower defense game which at the time had only about 5 maps, 8 towers, and 4 skin crates with a good number of skins. The lobby was simple, outdoor scene with classic elevators to enter a match. Once you complete said match, depending on the map, you could get a special hero, an exclusive skin, and finally a currency called coins, to which you can spend on crates that we previously mentioned. All of this was made by 2 developers, 1 coder and 1 model maker. Now, fast forward to what Tower Heroes is now. At the end of 2024, we have a new indoor lobby with a selection of UI options. Within the menu, we have 33 unlockable towers, 10 crates, 6 sticker packs, modifiers, enemy followers, which is an innumerable amount of cosmetics and trinkets. We now have servers where we're able to create matches and are met with several modes such as challenge, casual, adventure, battle, sandbox mode, and there's also raid mode, but that's exclusive to several maps. Every 7 days, we get a weekly challenge. Easter is no longer the only event celebrated, as we can now add Halloween and Christmas to that list. At some point during these events, there existed a battle pass, contracts, and now we have a workshop. The maps have gotten better, the skins have more detail, enemies too have more versatility to their looks. All of this was made by 2 developers, 1 coder, and 1 model maker. So gamer, do you notice the constant throughout these 4 years? It's the quantity of developers. The update load has grown to significant proportions while the quantity of workers are few. And therein lies what I think to be the problem. Now, I don't want to waste your time and take you through the whole Tower Heroes update timeline, as I think that could be done in a separate video, but if you do decide to look at it yourself, you'll notice that early 2020 Tower Heroes was updating quite frequently. Almost every couple of days, maybe every 2 weeks, and a rare occasion where they take a month but would return with such great amounts of content. And this was all due to the fact that the workload was much easier, much lighter. Still, a lot for 2 people, but way more tolerable. Compared to now where we get about 6 major updates in a year, the content is much more demanding in quality, and yet it feels like we get very little in return, with a focus on more and more cosmetics. The update load for what makes a Tower Heroes update nowadays simply isn't viable for 2 people to work on. I would argue they need to hire more people because they simply are lagging behind on what actually matters. And this is where my second point kicks in: the issues. By issues, I mean the things that the community has been complaining about for a long time. Some of these I'll explain in more detail, while others are pretty short or self-explanatory. First issue is what we just talked about. Updates are slow. Hire more people. Ease the workout. Genuinely, it's such a fixable issue. Second point, there is too much priority in the wrong things. Now, I understand that maps and cosmetics are important, but they're not everything. Same with the temporary content. A lot of the stuff that you once saw in the battle pass, contracts, and no doubt the workshop, you'll just never see again. They're definitely making workarounds, but most of the temporary stuff is gone, never to be seen. Third point, outdated materials. There is so much that needs reworking, like the UI. It's burdensome. I mean, burdensome to navigate through. Whether you need a cosmetic, a tower, certain modifiers, an enemy follower, you name it. It is also tiresome. Fourth point, that adds to the previous. We need a new lobby. Sorry, I think it's fair to say that a lot of people who were once with us or are still with us just don't like the lobby. It feels like I'm clocking into work with the way it looks. Unironically, just revamp the first ever lobby. It was a nice scene, very lively, literally anything that isn't our current one. Next point, too much backstock. In the Pixelbit Q&A, it was mentioned how there's lots of maps that haven't been released yet. So what's taking so long? How about the Honeycomb Heist and the Beatrice rework? Remember how long Volcano Valley took before it officially came to Tower Heroes? It took a year, and I fear that these other backstock maps and ideas will take just as long. Next point, abandoned projects. When was the last time we had a raid map? I mean, they've talked about how they don't like the current raid mode system, yet I see no work or mention of work being done. Who remembers adventure mode? Nah, I don't. Oh yeah, speaking of remembering, this is our next point. When was the last time you remember a major community event that affected the end game, like an art contest? The last skin-related contest was Easter of 2022. That's 2 years, my guy. We need more. To be quite frank with you, it's how a community stays alive. This is like a foundational thing for any fandom out there, period. Next point, how about gameplay problems? One I could easily think of is the grind. I don't know why, but ever since casual mode, it's been intolerable to grind the game. It feels like even when you find ways to make it fun or easy through the modifiers, they always end up nerfing it. It feels like there's a no fun allowed policy. Oh, you earned all those coins? Yeah, we're nerfing that. No fun allowed. Like, straight up, that's what it feels like. Speaking of modifiers, our next point is that the mods in this game have major, and I mean major, balancing issues. Some reward very little, others punish you ridiculously. The mods that offer the most rewards make the game excruciatingly difficult. I'm not even talking about like a skill tolerance or issue problem. Some mods are just downright impossible to beat. Mods aren't the only thing that are imbalanced, however. This next point could be debatable, but hero balancing, to me, it's all over the place. Some towers will be good, others will be bad, and before you know it, a meta is established, which is something that they've talked about that they don't want to be in Tower Heroes, or would argue that it doesn't exist. Rinse, repeat, that's Heroes balancing in a nutshell. Another balancing issue that could use some work is the wave system. Now, takes regarding the wave system is different for every person, but I find this to be the most accurate. So here's what a user has said. The early game limits the use of towers due to their either spam or sheer HP of the enemies. And then the absolute power creep after wave 10 is crazy. And that creates such a reliance on donations for high level towers, making the game unplayable for most randoms. Then after wave 30, it's literally just a DPS test. So if you don't have enough DPS, you're but if you don't bring any stuns for the boss, you're creating a reliance on multiple people, which was a problem earlier into the match. So it's a broken system that's gotten worse over time. Yeah, I'm sorry, but the spamming of difficulty spiked in the beginning of the rounds is getting old, dog. I'm sure a new player like that on a level 5 map, once called difficulty, titled takedown, wouldn't really like that so much. As the user mentioned earlier, which is our next point, the key word is reliance. I am so tired of the direction the game is taking with this whole bit of forced teamwork and the competitive style, doing everything they can to not let you play alone, constantly interfering with your way of grinding coins, making the game not fun. Oh yeah, but it's even worse for the new player. Most people aren't even playing the older maps, so there's no reason for old heads since they have already completed said maps and there's no good rewards. Then there's also the issue that they log into the game, finish the update, then log out, never to be seen again until the next update. Some don't even return. So all that's left is the new players, who are left with even newer players who are also figuring out the game. And if you've been to a randoms match, it is outrageous how stupid people can be, and your patience runs thin. I can absolutely see competent new players leaving due to that reason alone. And if by the off chance that they do stay, they have to progress through the tedious anti-grind system that requires you to grind, literally counterintuitive. And what's worse is that every single time there's an update, it's always the most difficult map ever seen. Do you think a new player is patient enough to grind through the most anti-grind system, getting all the towers necessary, finding a group with a set meta to beat the map? Yeah, My point here is that every update seems catered to people who have already finished what they could with Tower Heroes, not really doing anything for the new players. I wish I could go over this some more, but that could be its own video. So let's not waste time and jump to my last point. Endgame. Myself and many others have been asking this for years. The current endgame for towers is really nothing more than an endless grind for cosmetics. It's really only attractive to completionists. I myself am not a completionist, never have been for any game. And I can tell others are in the same boat. After all, so many of us play the update, then log off because there's nothing more for us to achieve, or the game has just gotten burdensome to play. This, I would argue, is probably the most difficult problem to solve. There's lots of ideas out there for endgame, but to be quite honest with you, I don't really know what could work, what could bring players back. I'll only tell you what I would like to see. It doesn't reflect what the community could want, but I would love to see community-made maps. No, I'm not talking about those maps selected by the devs to be added. I'm talking about a mode where people can go within Tower Heroes, create their own maps with the already made models within the game. Wouldn't it be cool to see an endless supply of maps that you can infinitesimally play until the next update? I could probably do a whole video on this idea alone, but I don't want to eat up your time. As exhaustive as this list is, I don't think they'll fix all of these, or worse, none of these. The state of the game is simply just too big for two developers to take head on. And just to make things worse, guess what they're up to? They're making a new game. No. Not like those small title games. I'm talking about a new main game. They announced this during a Pixelbit Q&A, and I was one of the few to ask a question with, well, an obvious problem.
See, CyberHaptic is asking, are you guys hiring more people to make this game, the new one, happen? If your work is split between two games with just two people, it can make both games updates real slow.
Well, Inflix here, isn't he?
Yeah.
Inflix helping with the new game, and then we're having Diesel make the music for it. That's pretty much all that's working on the game right now. Just me, Smelly, Inflix, and Diesel. So, yeah. That's what we have.
By the way, Imwick is no longer working on it, so it's back down to two developers. Again. But why in the world are we only stuck with two devs? I mean, don't get me wrong, they're good devs, but why just two? And this leads to my third and final segment as to why I think Tower Heroes doesn't hire more people. I used to think it was because maybe they don't have the funds, but that couldn't be more further from the truth. Their merchandising is crazy, not to mention what they could possibly earn from DevX. I mean, I don't have the inside scoop on what that's like, but there's no doubt in my mind that they at least have funds. Good amount of funds to hire people. And not only that, there's plenty of people who have offered themselves to work and yet are denied at every turn. I mean, take a look at all the contributors that have played a part of Tower Heroes. None of them have ever turned to a full-time developer. So what the hell is going on? Here's a question asked by someone in the Discord. A question that we have all been asking. The question that has been repeated throughout this video. So here's what this user has said. Curious question. Why not hire more developers to help build games? I think that's a fair question. And Hilo responds with, cuz Smelly doesn't wanna. What do you mean? Can I get more elaboration? And, you know, user rightfully says, huh? He doesn't have good experience with hiring peeps. And of course the user says, understandable. But I don't know. That's not understandable at all. It only leaves me with questions and assumptions. Is he not good at hiring people? Never doing background checks to see if their work is up to par? Or does this mean that he has bad hiring experiences? I ultimately can't come up with a full accurate answer. But the main point is that Smelly literally doesn't want to. Your updates are no longer faster because one guy doesn't want to hire people. The solutions seem rather easy to solve too. If you're having issues hiring people because of the work they put out, then I don't know, maybe be a more strict boss and demand for completed works? Like, do better background checks? I just don't see the difficulty in that if it's the latter option. where he doesn't trust in hiring new devs for whatever his reasons and intentions may be, which, mind you, is really self-intoxicating behavior. But nevertheless, you could solve this by making new devs abide by a contract. You know, if you do something that breaks my trust, you get a big suit. I mean, genuinely, it's not that hard. I have no clue how else to interpret this, so you can let me know in the comments below as to what that means, and maybe even a fix for the hiring process. Yeah, I'm just completely baffled and clueless as to what this could mean. So, we've reached near the end of the video. One final question that I want to ask is, where do we go from here? Every year, everyone talks about how this is it. This is finally the year that Tower Heroes dies, and it seems to never fully go dark. It's clear that people have a love for this game, and I don't think it'll ever truly go away. So what will Tower Heroes do in 2025 to address the issues spoken of by the community? You know, the issues that the community has been complaining about for years? Well, we can only wait and see. There's really only about two options they could take here. One option, which is preferred, is they listen to the advice of the people, which is to hire more devs. In turn, we get better updates, quicker too. All the issues previously mentioned would be fixed. Hilo and Smelly could work on that new game, as well as other side projects that they have made, and maybe even build upon it, like Poltergeist Perception, Lock, I'm just joking about that one, Survive the Wave, and so much more. Or they could continue the current route, letting the problem stack more and more and more, having maps and ideas abandoned or delayed, slow work progress on the new game, which also leaves me with a fear, and I think it's a pretty reasonable one. If this new game somehow takes off far beyond what Tower Heroes has ever made, I'm telling you, you can forget about Tower Heroes being updated, well, ever again. Hey, don't believe me? I mean, take a look at Hexagon development community. Did they not abandon Tower Blitz in favor of a PNG chase game? Or how about Blush Crunch Studios? I mean, take a look at the pattern of Flavor Frenzy's updates. It's not long until Blush Crunch entirely puts their fix on just Dandy's World. And look, I don't blame any of these companies, including Pixelbit, for working on the thing that is essentially making their livelihood. Totally justifiable. All I'm saying is that I don't see Pixelbit Studios keeping up with Tower Heroes, and it would be foolish to think that they would, or in denial that they will. So cheers to 2025 and the future of Pixelbit, and to our beloved game Tower Heroes. And with that, I bid you farewell. Goodbye. Goodbye.